Hey, good to see you again. The factory sent over the parts that were looking good on the rig. They're being fitted as we speak. Have a look at the report.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Aarava here, and welcome back to my F1 2017 career mode, episode number 74 today for the Singapore Grand Prix in Season 4 here. We've got a brand new part fitted to the car, so double upping on the last episode where we also got that engine upgrade. We've now got the chassis weight reduction we've done to the car. Of course, we have no more real minor upgrade to do to the engine side, so I'll probably be focusing on the chassis side for things for the rest of the season pretty much. We've got a few tyre wear upgrades to do, and I think one more minor before we hit the next major chassis upgrade, but obviously because those take 4 weeks versus the 1 week for the minor, it's a toss-up of just not being worth it for us, you know, as we're not really playing this as a long-term game. But if you did miss the last episode number 73 at the Italian Grand Prix, be sure to go check that one out before you check out the rest of this one. But heading into practice then at the Singapore Grand Prix, just getting used to the circuit and really noticing the difference actually in the Red Bull car v the Renault. Almost, you know, I was kind of going into the weekend thinking, okay, I can surely run a few less wings than I did last season in the Renault, because the Red Bull should technically have a lot more natural downforce in the car, but that wasn't to be really the case, and I ended up with using pretty much the same setup as I did last season with the Renault, even having a few little spills and thrills in my practice sessions at Singapore. That's what practice is there for, and here's hoping that that's all the niggles out the way ahead of qualifying then and the race. In terms of qualifying, there's going to be no rain forecast for that, so that's going to be all kind of simple compared to seasons gone by when we have had to go onto the intermediates and the full wets, but I do believe there is going to be some rain for the race, so that's going to play into our strategy potentially for Q2. You know, in the past I've definitely gone the super soft tyres, as Singapore obviously very abrasive on the tyres, tyre wear being a big issue. It's a long Grand Prix, obviously the longest Grand Prix in Formula 1, and even on a 50% race it does kind of drag on a bit. 31 laps around here, you know, it does take quite a bit of time, but we're not going to be using the super soft tyres because of that rain coming in. So we move into Q2 then swiftly. You saw there, no issues in Q1, and Ricciardo's looking pretty damn handy in Q1 at least, as we swing through the last corner, then using a bit of the curbing on the inside across the line. At the moment it's going to be the fastest lap time of the session. By the time we come to the end of that, obviously people do set their lap times eventually, and you can see Raikkonen is on that first place in Q2, but you can see both me and Ricciardo up there, and Ricciardo's still again ahead of me in this session. So Ricciardo looks to have some very, very decent pace, and the only man who set a lap time on super softs was Sebastian Vettel, so that's going to be interesting to see how that Ferrari car uses that to his advantage. But we move into Q3 then. Now you can see a little lock up into turn 1 and a bit of traffic in general ahead of us. Nico Hulkenberg, the car ahead of us, and he didn't really hamper us too much. If anything, gave us a bit of a long-range tow, but then we managed to pass him on the lap, and then we're now going for a second flying lap on the same amount of fuel. You can see I'm already up on my delta time, and you can see I'm gaining and gaining on Esteban Ocon then, and gaining more time on the delta on the top right, but you can see I'm very, very marginal fuel. I'm actually moving it down from maximum fuel mixture to rich mix, just so I'm going to try and eke out this fuel, because I've only fueled up for one flying lap, and I tried my best to do a second one, but you can clearly hear by the engine audio I actually ran out of fuel on the line. So that time I made up on that second flying lap, annoyingly, was all eroded as I ran out of fuel before the last corner. So that was quite frustrating for me, but as I said, I didn't plan on doing those two flying laps on the same set of tyres, but after being held up somewhat, you know, by Hulkenberg on that first flying lap, I thought I would go for it, and maybe I could just about get away with it by going down to rich mix or even standard mixture whilst I was in the lap, you know, sector 2 while you through the corners. I thought I could get away with it. Clearly not. So unfortunately, disappointment there for us. P7, whereas Ricciardo is on the front row of the grid. So who knows? We could have maybe even been going for pole position. But saying that, in hindsight, Q1 and Q2, Ricciardo pretty much had the measure of us. So for the first time really in this entire season, Ricciardo looks to have us completely for pace. So that's going to be quite interesting dynamic to see how that works out in the race, and if we can have a fair race with him. Obviously, we have to make up 5 positions before we even get to him. But the main man who is closest to us in the championship is on pole position. This man, Kimi Raikkonen, with Sebastian Vettel obviously qualifying on super soft tyres. So both the Ferraris are looking good. One man on pole, the other man not on pole, but he's on an alternate strategy. But as I said, there is some rain to come potentially. But anyways, let's get into the full grid, and then we'll see what the strategy options are available to us.
Well then, after an exciting qualifying session yesterday, let's take a look at how the cars line up. Kimi Raikkonen's perfect lap yesterday sees him start from pole position, and P2 goes to Daniel Ricciardo, a strong showing from the Australian. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Hamilton, Bottas, Sebastian Vettel and Palmer, a Red Bull, Hulkenberg, Perez and Esteban Ocon, Sainz, Kvyat, Kevin Magnussen and Massa, Alonso, Grosjean, Lance Stroll and Stoffel Van Dorn. Wehrlein and Marcus Ericsson rounds off the grid. Now it's almost time to lights out, so let's go down to the track.
Right, so here we are on the starting grid, and let's take a look at that race strategy then and see what we can do, really. So we're going to start on the ultra soft tyres. Of course, we qualified on the on that set in Q2, but you can see that rain is going to come. It's going to go to full heavy rain, it looks like, and then kind of go back to inters. So that will be a bit interesting. Maybe we'll have like 3 really late pit stops then, onto inters, onto full wets, and then back to inters potentially. But that is quite a changeable bit of weather in a short space of time. So that should be a good spanner in the works for everyone, really. But you can see there was no point to run the super softs. Basically, we'll run the ultra softs, go to super softs, and that'll take us easily to the period where the rain will start to come down. So, you know, no issues there. I don't really actually see Sebastian Vettel really benefiting too much from his strategy today. So, for once, I think we've gone with the more aggressive and correct strategy. So, here we go to 5 red lights then to the Singapore Grand Prix. Round number 14 of Season 4 is underway here under the floodlights in Singapore, and it's a good getaway from us. A poor one from Sebastian Vettel. Of course, he's on the super soft tyres, so he will have a little bit less initial grip as we try and go to the inside of him and Palmer. But Palmer actually being very aggressive indeed and goes down the inside of Sebastian Vettel. So how do you like that? Julian Palmer is going to make a move on the quadruple world champion round the outside. Meanwhile, I think that's Daniel Ricciardo fighting off Lewis Hamilton. I think that is. Yes, it is, as Kimi Räikkönen leads the way from Ricciardo and Hamilton side by side there, closely followed by behind by Valtteri Bottas. Meanwhile, Vettel has been squeezed out by Palmer down the main straight, but we're going to try and feed it around the outside, catch him napping somewhat. Bit of contact is made there between myself and Sebastian, but looks like we'll get this to the inside, and Ricciardo and Hamilton are still going side by side as we do nip ahead of Vettel. We've got that position then, and Ricciardo is still fighting hard to try and keep the second place he got from qualifying yesterday, as Räikkönen is literally waltzing away. He's got a very easy time of it at the moment, as Hamilton now beautifully to the outside, turn to the inside for the next right-hander as they sling through that new section from Singapore that they changed a few years ago, and Hamilton now is looking like he's going to get second place, but Ricciardo is still trying to keep his elbows in, but look, using the Mercedes power, of course. Hamilton looks to be powering past, and he's up into second. Meanwhile, further back down the order, we're making a huge dive bomb on Julian Palmer, up into 5th place there. Palmer completely caught unaware of me coming down the inside there, and you saw I almost crashed into him, really, how much I closed up, and he's still down the inside though, so we're keeping it side by side, neck and neck. Little bit of contact there on the left-hand side, and just about grazing the wall and keeping out the barriers by a few pixels, I guess you could say. And eventually we will get that up into 5th place, and now we can try and chase after the first silver arrow of the afternoon, Valtteri Bottas. But Palmer's still going very, very well indeed to obviously overtake Vettel as Kimi crossed the line then to set the fast lap of the Grand Prix on lap 1. And you can see it on that camera shot, he's not even there. Kimi's literally just gone, and I don't think we'll be seeing this entire Grand Prix, to be honest. That Ferrari car, I've said it many times, it's still very much the fastest car of the Grand Prix. They've just been getting very unlucky with traffic, but now no traffic to speak of. Meanwhile, this is a replay camera, actually. This is a replay of what happened here to Vettel after I overtook him. This was whilst we were watching that battle between Ricciardo and Hamilton. You can see there's Palmer just ahead of Vettel, and Vettel's actually being overtaken by, I think that's Sergio Perez, the first Force India, and now he's in a Force India sandwich in between Perez and Ocon then. So Vettel really struggling, and I'm actually counting my lucky stars that I did not go onto that set of super softs, because if I went on that set, I probably would have been going backwards like Vettel as well, because the ultra softs are just working an absolute treat right now at the moment as we move into lap 4, getting right up the shaft of Valtteri Bottas then, and setting a personal best lap time there. Ricciardo still very much in between the two Mercedes cars, so kind of neutralising that fight at the moment, but looks like we have some decent enough pace to maybe catch up to Bottas. We've got plenty of fuel to burn at the moment, opening DRS, and we'll bump it up to rich mix, try and get in the tow and see how much we can gain. We're running quite high winds here, I think 8, 9 I think it is, so pretty damn high, but even still with rich mix and DRS still able to close up. Obviously most AI cars probably also running a little bit higher than you usually would at other circuits, but at the moment just unable to make anything work. Trying to suss out a move, moving left and right in the brake zone, maybe trying to put Bottas off if we can, but for now it's all neutral, and having a bit of oversteer on the exit is not going to help us there. But Bottas, you can see, goes defensive somewhat to the left-hand side of the brake zone then, as we swing through now to the right-hander, closing up a little bit more in 3rd gear, feeling the groove, and through this next section, really going to gain so much time here as we go to the brake zone, get as close as we can to the wall on the right-hand side that was, and we're right up the gearbox now. Bottas got an excellent run through in 2nd and 3rd gear, and so we'll make the same little move we did to Julian Palmer, this time a little bit less dramatic, but down the inside of Valtteri Bottas, he locks up on the front right tyre, and we try and control the oversteer that we've got on the exit, and we do so, and we're up into P4. So very nice move, calculated, took an entire lap to work that move out, but we've done it. We've been patient, we've been rewarded, and now we can try and chase after Daniel Ricciardo if we can. Speaking about Daniel Ricciardo, as we move on to lap 6, 2 laps later, if you squint your eyes enough and look further ahead, you can see Ricciardo trying to make a move to the outside of Lewis Hamilton. Very tricky place. Of course, that was the famous place where Hamilton and Massa came towards in 2011. Looks like there's still maybe a little bit of contact between Ricciardo and Hamilton, as Hamilton keeps his nose in there to the inside, diving down the inside of that 4th gear corner, and he's going to try his best on the exit, but yeah, he's had to give that position up. So eventually Ricciardo does do it, and obviously from qualifying we've seen this car that I'm driving, the Red Bull, seems to have some very decent pace, especially in the hands of Ricciardo. He was absolutely flying, and I was very surprised and shocked to see him on the first row of the grid, to be honest, because we've seen so far pretty much in F1 2017 career mode, the teammates, it doesn't really matter who your teammate is in terms of the AI, the teammate just never is able to keep up with you too much. So surprised and kind of pleased to see Ricciardo performing so well at the moment as he tries and stretches away from Hamilton in P2, but now we're going to try and overtake him as well if we can to the inside. Very, very big lunge to the inside, locking on the left-hand side tyre, and that was pretty much like a Daniel Ricciardo-esque sort of dive bomb, like from what Ricciardo did at the real-life Italian Grand Prix. Really darted in there into turn 1, locked up a little bit, but because we already had the move done, I could park the car on the apex, and it was all fine and dandy. And now we move on through the laps then from lap 7, and it's Kimi Raikkonen leading the way by quite some way. He's in a world of his own really from Ricciardo in 2nd, and you can see we're close, we're quite close behind in 3rd place then. But yeah, Ricciardo really at the moment, you would say, doesn't look like he's going to be challenged at all. As we move on to lap 10 now, to the end of it, Ricciardo comes in. I'm going to continue on for one more lap here on towards lap 11. You can see setting a personal best on lap 10 on Ultra Softs. So very happy that I did not go on Super Softs, because these Ultra Softs in the hands of the Red Bull car at least, and maybe Kimi Raikkonen's Ferrari car, they've been going really well. Me and Raikkonen and Ricciardo, the longest out here on the circuit, as well as Palmer then, P4. Whereas the rest of them, I think Hamilton came into the pit stop around lap 8, I think I want to say. So he came in very early indeed. So good tyre wear showing here is now Raikkonen on the top left goes on to the soft tyres, which is surprising to say the least. We're coming on to a set of super soft tyres, and we'll go to that rain period obviously, unless the game wants to troll me and never bring the rain. In that case, maybe Raikkonen's correct to go on to soft tyres, but we get held up unfortunately in the pit stops there by Palmer. You would have, if you listened closely enough, the engine, I was pulling the clutch like twice and I just wouldn't go, and that was because Palmer was coming down the pit lane, so my team couldn't let me go. So unfortunately, as we come down the pit lane, there goes Ricciardo on the left hand side, but watch out for Hamilton there in the silver arrow as he comes through. As we go back to our POV, as we go through the exit of the pit lane, there goes Hamilton, and he's re-overtaken us in the pit stops there. So Buddy Palmer, our other fellow Brit, is the one that will kind of hinder us somewhat, and now we're back down to what will be P5 for now. Obviously becomes P4 then, as one last person has to make their pit stop as we come across the line then on lap 14 though, setting the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. So on these super softs, we are coming alive. This car is coming alive, and he's feeling very, very connected indeed, and we're rapidly closing up on Hamilton then, and he's not really closing too much up on Ricciardo, to be honest. So if we can try and overtake him as fast as we did last time into turn 1, that would be ideal. As we go a little bit wide though, getting a bit of wash of dirty air through that final corner, but nonetheless opening DRS, rich mix flowing, but you can see into turn 1 getting oh so close but no cigar there to Hamilton. I mean, in hindsight, maybe if I had gone down the inside, he would have had to given us the room, but I just didn't know that, how much I was going to close up in turn 1, and so we have to stick behind him. So it takes us to lap 16 then to get right up his gearbox once again. But you can see now the rain is coming down quite rapidly indeed. Of course, we are going to get to full heavy rain eventually in this race, so the rain is coming very fast at the moment here in Singapore. You can see getting a bit of issue with a tank slapper on the exit of turn 2, I think that was. And so as we go down this main straight though, I'm not the one making the moves. It's going to be Hamilton, it looks like, in the slipstream of Daniel Ricciardo. In the same place, Ricciardo overtook Hamilton, or started the move on Hamilton in the previous stint. He goes round the outside, Hamilton does, as we enter sector 2, diving down the inside, keeps his nose in there. Ricciardo on soft tyres, so that's the first time I've seen that, but Ricciardo squeezes Hamilton out, leaves us a bit of room to maybe make a move on Hamilton then. So Ricciardo, a bit of teamwork's been done as he shoved off Hamilton and opened up the space for us, but Hamilton goes defensive to the left, so a little bit surprising to be honest, because I wasn't really anywhere near him then. As we close up now through the right-hander, in the same place we got a Bottas. Can we maybe make another move to the inside? Yes, we will. This time it'll be the full move to the inside, whereas obviously with Bottas we just closed up to his gearbox. We've actually made the dive bomb down the inside, open up rich mix, and we're up into 3rd place once again. That Renault car is looking very, very close to Hamilton there, so maybe Hamilton is starting to struggle maybe a little bit on ultra softs. I mean, to be fair, the rain's coming down, so all of us are going to be struggling now for grip, but Hamilton, I wonder if those ultra softs are just wearing out a bit too much, and that combination of tyre wear versus the slippery conditions are not going to work out. And as we move on later in the race, that is going to be the case, I think, for him, because he locks up. He's going to lose a position to not only one of the Renaults, which is Johnny Palmer, and onto his teammate Valtteri Bottas, and so now he's just about ahead of Nico Hülkenberg and Sebastian Vettel. So now we can see the DRS is disabled, Ricciardo's in, I'm in now as we lock up, as we try and slow the thing down before in the pit lane. Unfortunately though, it's going to be a double stack for us at the Red Bull team. No way I can work around it, but there's just no way I could have stayed out for another lap. It was just way too wet, so I have to come in. I have to kind of just bear the kind of the brunt of having to kind of be paused a little bit there with the animations. You can see I've not actually lost a position there. We're still ahead of that Mercedes car, and it looks like we'll just about be ahead of Hülkenberg. Yes, we will. Thankfully, the Renault team have to hold up for myself and Bottas, so good stuff there. So, yeah, we've not really lost any positions. We've lost a bit of time, obviously, to Ricciardo, which is a shame. And obviously, as we've seen in the past, previously, I've not been amazing on intermediates or full wets for that matter against the AI. They just obviously have the perfect knowledge of applying the throttle, whereas I'm a little bit throttle happy at times, even in the dry, let alone the wet. So it's going to be a bit tough maybe now for the rest of this race to catch up to Ricciardo. As I mentioned, you know, Singapore being the longest race in the season, it's going to drag on a little bit now, I think, you know, with now, what's that, 13 laps to go. I think it's going to be a pretty long damn 13 laps, as we do overtake Grosjean, who for some reason, as I said, stayed out on super soft tyres, and that wouldn't have been, this would have been us basically. If we stayed out for one more lap and didn't get the double stack, this would have been us, just prattling around on super soft tyre. I don't know what on earth Stroll, Massa was thinking, or Grosjean, but we overtake them very easily nonetheless. But you can see I'm tiptoeing around at the moment, trying to feel out the grip. You know, it's wet enough to go into Inters, but it wasn't wet enough for the Inters to be performing well. And then by the time we get to lap 23, only a couple laps later, it's rapidly been raining, so much so that now it's already time for the full wet tyre. So like I mentioned, it was one droplet of rain on the icon, then the full heavy rain, and then it may go back to Inters in this race. But Bottas decides to continue on, and I believe at this stage, Ricciardo and Raikkonen had already stayed out because they were so far ahead of me. By the time my engineer called me in for this pit stop, Ricciardo and Raikkonen had already passed the pit stop, so they couldn't possibly have come in. So I'm hoping and was praying that this could be maybe the part where we start to close up on Ricciardo now. We're going to be onto the full wet. Maybe we can do a huge undercut on Ricciardo. He starts to really struggle on those intermediates, you know, in what is now full wet conditions. So we come out on the blue wall tyre for the first time in a while, really. I can't really actually remember the last time we were out on the full wet tyres in this career mode so far, in the race at least. It escapes my mind. I literally can't remember what last was. I think it may have been Malaysia, perhaps, maybe last season. I can't remember. Anyway, we move on to lap 24 then. So one lap later, kind of skating through the last corner almost, and looking on towards the mini-map, trying to see where Ricciardo is, and he's not even in the pit lane. He's already out of the pit lane. There's his yellow dot just going off your screen on the mini-map. We do overtake Bottas once again, so we're back up into P3, but Ricciardo is nowhere to be seen. So he just has some electric pace this afternoon. I can't do much but just applaud Ricciardo this race. He really just has had it the entire time. He's had me in his back pocket pretty much. But before we end off the race then, one last little thing. It wouldn't be an F1 2017 career mode from me if we didn't have Sebastian Vettel, yes, retiring. Yes, that's not a joke. He did retire. We've got 17 runners. I think the other retirees were, I think, Carlos Sainz and maybe one of the Saubers, I think. I can't remember exactly. But yeah, Sebastian Vettel retiring again in another season, in another race this season. Just, you can't write how much bad luck he's had, really. So we come across the line very gingerly then for P3, which is a solid podium for us. A really awesome double podium for Red Bull as a whole. And, you know, as I said, really happy to see Ricciardo there having some really decent pace. I would have liked it if he had more pace to maybe go and overtake Raikkonen, because now Raikkonen winning that Grand Prix, 25 points in the bag. Obviously, I get 15, so that is going to be 10 points he's gained on me, and we only had 11 points ahead of him, I think, in the Drivers' Championship. So, although it's a happy moment for me to see both of us on the podium and him doing so well, Ricciardo, if he had more pace to overtake Raikkonen, that would have been better, because now our points gap's only 1. So, pretty much Raikkonen, he's won the last 2 rounds, and he's eroded that 24-point gap I had in 2 races flat. So, like I said, we can't rest on our laurels. I won 1 race and had a huge gap, but then Raikkonen comes out of nowhere. Raikkonen's not been this consistent since season 1, pretty much, if you remember. I mean, he's just come out of nowhere to now win 2 wins on the trot, and Vettel's been nowhere to challenge him, and the 2 Mercedes are still bottling their performances. So at the moment, I'm going to have to hope we can pull it back and get a bit of a performance going, and at least beat Kimi in the the next race if we want to keep the lead in the Drivers' Championship. But nonetheless, guys, if you have enjoyed the episode, smash that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. And if you're new around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I've been aarava. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.